On February 8, 2018, 24-year-old Aubrey Bowling was commuting home from work on her R6 when a silver GMC SUV began to drive erratically next to her in rush hour traffic on a stretch of I-5 near Milton, Washington. While traffic was stopped, the driver of the SUV, 60-year-old Bruce Jones, exited his vehicle and began a physical altercation that would end up claiming his life. After the incident, Aubrey, who goes by Bree, has avoided discussing the topic publicly so far with news outlets. I reached out to her and was surprised and humbled that for the first time, Bree agreed to discuss the full details of her terrifying encounter with me. Stay tuned. I think it's important to make a few things very clear before I start. First, I acknowledge that this is going to be a presentation of the facts from one party's perspective, which is going to present Bruce Jones as an unstable and violent aggressor. There's absolutely no way around this because there's no two sides to this story. The objective facts and witness statements in this case tell the exact same story, which is what Bree recalls in this interview. It's really easy with 20/20 hindsight, unlimited time, and different life experiences to come up with suggestions for how Bree could have reacted differently to prevent this altercation. And you can play the what-if games forever, but in this video, I'm going to be focusing on telling Bree's story and how this incident has affected her. If you followed the story to this point like I did, I'd encourage you to set aside everything that you think you know about this situation and any conclusions that you've intuited from that information. The reporting from this situation was largely missing first-hand accounts, and most reports that I read contained incorrect details that made it really easy to draw false conclusions. Please be warned that the following account contains potentially distressing descriptions of violence. Bree left work going southbound on I-5 in light traffic, wearing her full motorcycle gear, a Sedici one-piece tracksuit, gauntlets, and of course her helmet. Initially, traffic was light by Seattle standards, and the ride was uneventful until she moved over into the HOV lane in front of Jones GMC. So you took a gap in between, you kind of made a left turn in front of him, right?
Yep, got over in front of him, blinker, all that, kind of got over, and then our lane was going for a while. Like, we were at 35, 40, chilling. All the other lanes were stopped, dead. So we're chilling in the carpool lane, and he's a good, probably 20, 30 feet behind me, like, just way back. And that's how he was with the car in front of him, because I remember when I was over, I looked and he left a lot of space in front of the car, and so I was like, okay, cool, boop, got over.
Eventually, traffic slowed to a crawl. Bree took an inside lane position toward other lanes of traffic, away from the shoulder, and left a gap of space in front of her. This simple and not at all uncommon behavior seemed to be the initial trigger for Bruce's ire.
At that time, a lot of bikers do this. They split lanes or they ride to the side.
I tell you what, if it was stopped, I would definitely be lane splitting. There's no way I would be there.
Exactly. So a lot of people do it. I don't. I don't do it. I don't do it in the lane if if there's like an exit and it's bad, I'll shoulder ride it. But I'm not blowing through 80 miles an hour. I don't need any extra people trying to come out and hit me and.
You're concerned about the people impeding or blocking or potentially doing something for retribution, basically, against you. So you don't lane split specifically for that reason.
Specifically for people to hit me or have me hit them so they can get an insurance claim. My traffic is kick it in second gear, rolling at 25, 30, leave space so I don't have to downshift and then upshift again and then downshift and then stop. And so I just like to leave plenty of room in front of me so I can just roll. I mean, anyone with a manual car or a motorcycle knows you off some leaving space so you're not stopping and going. So I got over and we were rolling for a good mile, 2 miles, and our lane starts to slow down, so we come to our very first stop and he's plenty of room behind me. And so we were cruising, we kind of got back up to speed, up to 25, 30, and we were going, and then we came to slow again. So I leave a gap in front of me, and we come back to another stop, and then I leave another gap, and at this point, he is no longer okay with me leaving that gap. Like, he gets boom, right on my rear tire. Like, he is right there, at least 2-3 feet behind me.
After Bree acknowledged Jones' tailgating and questioned this behavior with a gesture, Jones rapidly accelerated onto the shoulder and began to threaten her with his vehicle.
And so I take off and he stays with me, right on me. And so I look back and I'm like, as anyone would do, I was like, like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you so close to me? And so I I speed up, I drop it, speed up, and he's fucking right on me still right on me. I'm riding, and I look, like, kind of turn like this, and his car is on the shoulder like revving towards me and is trying, I can see him at this point, I'm like face to face with his wife. Like, you're his wife. I'm on my bike, lane position 1, he's in the shoulder, and he is jerking his car at me as these lanes are stopped.
Once traffic stopped, he exited his vehicle to confront Bree at her bike.
Our lane comes to a stop. So I'm fucking bombing down, like I'm obviously got away from him and I gained speed. Finally got to the cars that were stopped and everybody was stopped at this time. Coming to a stop, drop my bike into neutral and look back. As I'm looking, I see in my mirror and I see a fucking door, the door is ajar, the door's open and I turn like this and he is fucking right there. First thing that ran through my mind was, holy fuck, he's gonna push me over. First thing I do was, oh shit, I'm gonna put my kickstand down. So I put my kickstand down, boop. So I got off my bike and I'm like, obviously the first thing is, what the fuck? What are you doing? And so we're probably maybe about 4 to 5 feet apart at this point. So I immediately get off my bike and then take a couple steps back.
Interesting, so you're both on the same side because you have turned,
turned
to face him. Got it.
Yes, okay. Exactly.
Jones advanced towards Bree, yelling obscenities, which were met in kind. He quickly closed the gap, pushing her with his chest. Bree responded by pushing him away, but this didn't stop his advance.
He screamed at me, I'm yelling back at him, like saying, like, fuck you, get away from me, get away from me, get away from me, because he's walking towards me at this time.
Sure.
He's like walking towards me, and we're like fucking this far apart from each other. Like, we're like fucking right here, and he like kind of like chest bumps me, and so I push him back.
He closed the gap again, but this time grabbing Bree by the shoulders. She attempted to wriggle herself free from his grasp, but wasn't able to overpower Jones directly, and instead used her helmet to strike Jones in the face.
So he chest bumped me, I pushed him away, I was like, get away from me, and he had come back at me and kind of grabbed my shoulders, like grabbed, so from this way he had grabbed around like this, and so I had like done like this, I was like, get away, and he was on me still, and so the only other thing I knew to do was get the fuck back, and obviously my visor was shut, and I cocked my head back and just boom, just headbutted the shit out of this dude, and he backed up, I heard cracking, and he had backed up and covered his face.
Jones reeled back from the strike briefly, but then charged Bree. He gained control of her head by grabbing the bottom opening of her helmet. Jones began violently yanking Bree's head back and forth, while bringing her over to the concrete barrier, separating them from reverse direction, highway speed traffic.
He was holding his face, and then I'm like, stay away from me, and then all of a sudden he like charges towards me, and like kind of like does this weird like head motion, and I can't like, again, in my suit, I can't do this move. I can't, block him. I have a big helmet on too.
Like here's probably about the best you could
That's
even
about
do.
the best I could do.
Yeah.
And so as he's, running towards me, I kind of, I'm doing this move, like get away from me, and he actually grabs a hold of my helmet. As the helmet's on my head, he grabs it like this. So he has a hold of my head.
Yeah,
so he would grab it like this. And so as I'm like, my head's here, he had a hold of it, and I was just trying to like get him off of me. I was like hitting and doing everything I could, but at the time, like I can't hit up, and he was taller than me and stuff, so I was trying to like get him off of me, and then he at that time was starting to like yank my head. I don't know if you've ever seen like a dog when they have a toy in their mouth and they do that like violent shake, like
was he like shaking
with the toy?
He was like shaking.
It was that he was like doing that and yanking and walking me over to the barrier all at the same time, and I'm like freaking out already.
Once at the barrier, he slammed her helmeted head repeatedly into it with enough force to give Bree a concussion as diagnosed by ER doctors. Once at the barrier, he slammed her helmeted head into it repeatedly.
We make it over that way, and then he like kind of and just like fucking slams it. Like I don't know how to explain it because it all happened in 10 seconds.
So he's slamming.
So he had slammed my head against the wall, and his body is like kind of on me, I guess.
While Jones was over the top of Bree, the action of Jones violently pulling up on the helmet created a choking action similar to a sleeper hold. The lack of blood flow to the brain creates a condition called cerebral hypoxia. In combination with the head trauma Bree suffered just moments before, she described symptoms including tunnel vision, confusion, and panic. And it was at that moment she remembered she had a gun.
And so he had and then he was socking the helmet against the wall. So my head is already here. He's like socking it. He had put his hand on my helmet and was trying to rip my helmet off of my head. So my chin strap was more or less suffocating me. So I was kind of going like in and out. I was like losing vision and my breath, and I would come to all this. It all happened so quickly. And then I was down on a knee, and so the only thing I remembered was, holy fuck, you have a gun. Use it. You are going to die.
Bree zipped down her one-piece suit to access her gun. She pulled it from her sweater, pointed it just above her to his chest, and fired one shot.
All of my suit down and I didn't really fumble, but I kind of pulled, so it was like this. It was like here, and I kind of went like, I was like this, trying to like rush it down, and then I just pull it out here, and then press it up. But he's still up against my body at this point, and I press, and then just.
And you fired one
discharged,
shot.
One shot, one round. It was a full metal jacket, so it wasn't even I just got to the range. I just finished the range.
Bree fell to the ground hyperventilating, and then began to vomit from a combination of anxiety, panic, fear, and adrenaline.
He had got off of me and laid on the ground, and I was laying there too and trying to catch my breath and
regain thoughts and composure.
And I threw up four or five times. As soon as it happened, I stood up and was like, holy fucking shit, and just pretty much like fell right back down against the barrier, gun, firearm, whatever, still in hand.
After a bystander approached to check on Bree and Jones, Bree grabbed her phone from her bike mount and dialed 911.
So after it happened, I sat back down on the ground and was like, oh my god, what do I do? And so I just kind of like, I went to grab my phone and then kind of like fumbled back because my phone was still on my bike right here. 911, like, she was like, what happened? I was like, I just shot somebody. I need help right now, or, however I said it, but my initial thing was, I just shot somebody. Like, that was the initial 4 words that came out of my mouth.
The police arrived 10 to 15 minutes later, and the first officer on the scene approached Bree without saying a word and put her in handcuffs.
As I'm on the phone, I see an officer come up and puts me in handcuffs. Like, he just walks up and was like, boom, handcuffs. During all of this, I am like hyperventilating. I'm still screaming and freaking out. Like, I'm never calm during any of this. Like, I can't breathe.
This isn't something that it took you 5 minutes and then you were back to being your normal self. This is a continuous process of realizing and processing and again, being accosted by other people.
And when they handcuffed me, the initial thought was, holy shit, I'm going to jail.
Bree sat for about 30 minutes on the side of the road while police assessed the situation and emergency crews tended to Bruce.
I was hysterical, and the last thing I wanted was my face blasted out everywhere after I had drool and vomit.
Sure.
And my head was just hit, so it was hurting, and it, as much as it would have been felt better or whatever to relieve the helmet pressure, it was comfortable with it on. The bystander was like, looked over to me and was like, I'm gonna move your bike off of the roadway so people can get by.
Sure.
And that's how the bike made it to the shoulder. That's how the car made it to the shoulder.
After about 2 hours, they loaded her into the back of an ambulance and took her to the local hospital for treatment.
They put me on a flat board because my head was, my neck was hurting, my head, was in excruciating pain. And so I was in panic mode for a good 2 or 3 hours. I was in the ambulance, freaking out. I got to the hospital. They were, ripping my helmet off. They cut through my clothes.
Did they ruin that suit?
They didn't ruin the suit. They tried to. But as I'm like screaming, I'm like, take the fucking suit off! Like, this suit, I just bought it. Like, I didn't want it ruined.
Yeah. After being assessed at the hospital and going through a battery of tests, she gave a statement to law enforcement and was discharged that same evening.
Then I went to the hospital, and then they took it off and put me into x-rays and gave me, meds and pain meds and all that kind of stuff, and anxiety, calmers.
Yep.
And so I had given the statement in the hospital room, and as soon as I gave the statement, they let me know that he had passed, and they were like, as soon as you're discharged, have a good night.
A friend of hers saw the incident on the news and immediately contacted a lawyer who put himself between Bree and everything else going on. A little over a month later, on Friday, March 16th, 2018, the Pierce County Prosecutor's Office announced that they would not file charges against Bree for anything in this incident.
The lawyer I had was sought out by a friend of mine who knew who he was, and as soon as she had told him, he immediately got on the case, like me. So he kind of jumped into it without kind of telling me. Obviously, I was, and this was like the next. So it happened on a Thursday. He was there Friday. I honestly never was in fear that I was guilty of anything. I never felt guilt. I never felt, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. I was protecting my life.
This is the point where it's really easy to think that the story ends. And it does, for the rest of us, but not for Bree. She took a few weeks off from work, but of course, there was nothing relaxing about the weeks following the incident. She was provided pain medication, anti-anxiety meds, began physical therapy, and various treatments for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Obviously, a lot of social media. I shut my Facebook down immediately after I got my phone, just because I didn't want people. They were tagging me in the news stories.
Smart.
The feelings that I had at the time, I was obviously angry. I was very angry. I was very scared. I didn't want to leave my house because I was in fear of, the news and people coming at me. After I got all my stuff back, I went to the range and I cried after the first 3 times I went back shooting, I cried. And anybody that has, any PTSD or any type of traumatic experience, you relive those same feelings in your brain. So your brain is consistently on that fight or flight mode. So anytime I seen, it still happens a little bit, anytime I see a GMC car, I freak. I'm like I need to get away from this car right now. Anytime at 4:45, between 4:45, 5 o'clock, most days I can feel myself get angry. I think I took about a week or 2 off, and then I tried to go back, and then it was just, I couldn't do it. Like, I would just immediately just break down in tears. Like, it wouldn't even, I could be sitting at home watching a SpongeBob episode and just burst into tears. I tried to go back to work, and I couldn't. I took another couple of days off. I couldn't do the traffic. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't drive to work that early in the morning. Yeah, they had me on, they obviously gave me a lot of anxiety medications and pain medications and stuff like that. So, and I was taking them. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see his angry face just looking right at me. And so that was very scary. I'd wake up in cold sweats, and I didn't want to stay at my own house because I didn't feel safe that people would try to come. His family tried to, retaliate against me, and
you felt they didn't, but you felt
I felt sure. Like someone or anybody.
While Bree was trying to recover and return to a normal life, the consequences of being thrust into the public eye began to take their toll. The gun used in this interaction was stolen from her vehicle weeks after the incident, which could have been a coincidence, but was hard for Bree to not feel as if people targeting her online were reaching out into the real world to try and seek some sort of vengeance. Media organizations like Local News contacted her for interviews and any information possible. With the uncertainty of whether criminal charges would be brought against her hanging over her head and dealing with the stress and anxiety of the situation, Bree declined all interviews.
So one of them, she came to the door and my dad answered and was like, oh, she's taking a nap. That was King 5. And then Cairo 7, Dee Dee, son, she was adamant. She was at my door almost every day. She reached out to me on Facebook after it happened, and she was like, oh, okay, she wanted to do an interview. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I invited them into my home, started the interview, and then I immediately was like, you know what, I don't want to do this interview. I want to be left alone by news, because I knew they were going to blast it and change it up. And
even without her participation, the coverage still had significant reach. With her name in every story, people dug into her past in order to harass her and to try to find some reasoning for Jones' irrational behavior, other than the simple truth that he suffered from at least some form of anger disorder.
They literally tried to find the worst fucking things about me to make me look like a piece of shit, so it would look like I was at fault for that guy doing what he did. The same girl said I was in a bulletproof suit.
The realities of the financial burden placed on Bree also became clear later on. The simplest bills came from the hospital. Ambulance ride, CT scans, MRI, and a few prescriptions added up to thousands of dollars. Legal fees were a looming concern that Bree hoped wouldn't be as high as the initial estimates of $10,000. And coming to terms with the fact that she'll likely require the enlistment of professional services in managing stress, anger, anxiety, memories, and intrusive thoughts related to this incident for the rest of her life.
So the GoFundMe was originally set up for legal fees. Obviously before I was cleared, because I had no idea what was going on. Average cost of a lawyer is anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000, like a case, and that's just like basic starting out of the gate, like here, I'm gonna put this on your desk, give me $5,000. And then just all medical fees, bills from the very first night it happened was $17,000. I do have medical insurance. They don't cover ambulance rides, and that was $6,000.
Of course. What?
$6,000 because they had to use lights and sirens.
Oh my God. American healthcare system.
And then to put me into the ER was an extra $3,000 to bump me in front of anyone else that was already waiting. So that's cost more.
Wow.
So that's $9,000 right there. And then they gave me, obviously, I got X-rays, CT scans, MRI. And I wrote in, tried to get financial aid and stuff, saying, these are my expenses monthly before any of this happened. Like, I have to pay for all my prescriptions. I have to pay for therapy and stuff. So it definitely is hard because a lot of my medical only goes so far. It only covers so many because I still have to go physical therapy, prescriptions, all that is still, coming through. And it's, anytime I have some type of anxiety attack, I try to tie it into those medical expenses because I wasn't going to the ER for anxiety or probably more personal than I would like to be. I did actually have to admit myself in because of everything that was going on with the things people were saying, and just the thoughts in your head. It definitely makes you not kind of want to be here and deal with that kind of stuff. And you shut your phone off, people can still come through, and it's still just the thought in my head. So I had to submit in for to be put on suicide watch because I wasn't in my right mind or to know what was going on with my body, because I didn't know why I was crying. I didn't know why I was feeling angry. I didn't know why I couldn't. I was sleeping 16 hours a day.
If you'd like to assist Bree in some way, you can contribute to her GoFundMe. I'll include links on the screen here and in the description. Before I shut the books on this, I'll clarify some of the bigger questions and misconceptions surrounding this case. Bree has never been in the military or any armed service. She owns a firearm for personal protection and is a hobbyist. Bree had her concealed carry permit at the time of this incident. Washington is a stand-your-ground state. Bree had no legal requirement to flee from a violent aggressor. Jones had a dash cam, but it wasn't powered on at the time of the incident. Digging into Bree or Bruce's past to try to find some sort of meaning to this incident isn't useful. A police report, tickets, past convictions, they don't indicate who you are at the date of the incident. We expect people in society to control themselves in the face of anger, obscenities, insults, and obscene gestures. There's no excuse for Bruce in this situation to use his vehicle to threaten violence or to exit his vehicle to start the altercation. As someone who's had their internet history dug through with a fine-tooth comb, I don't take people's statements that they make online too seriously. I'm well aware of how easily people take tongue-in-cheek statements, jokes, or exaggerations as fact and then draw erroneous conclusions about someone's character from that. I personally never approach somebody in traffic because I didn't like their driving. If this sounds like normal and rational behavior to you, I would suggest you consult a professional with experience in anger disorders. Seriously. One of the reasons I found this story so compelling is because in my 10 years of writing, I've probably had a dozen experiences where someone has left their vehicle to attempt to confront me. Many times, it was for almost nothing. I feel like in a different universe, this easily could have been me in Bree's shoes. I want to thank Bree for trusting me to assist in telling her story, and for her bravery in telling her story at all. Ride fast, take chances, and take care of yourself.